In part one, as you know, in our main storyboard, we saw that we had created segues and we had created with those segues buttons and stuff like that, all those kinds of interface things, but we haven't utilized them. At this point, you need to know that for a button, you need to have a method, so when you click the button, the method will run, and you also need to know that you have to have a connection to that method. So it's the button, the connection, and the method. On something like a text box, you need to have the text box, the connection, and the item, the outlet you connect it to, whatever that outlet will be. Now, when you go into controller 1 here, view controller 1, and just to show you, if you remember, that it's controlled by this controller here. Actually, let me go back to our example. I'm in the wrong example. I have one that's on there. Hang on a second. There it is. So, to show you in the view controller that it is indeed controlled by the main view controller class. The button is here, and our text box is there. So, we go to the class. Now, we don't have to actually go to it in that way. What you can do is, up here, show the assistant editor. When we click that, we get the actual implementation class that we see with the item, the class of the item. So, for example, now, if I now jump to my declaration class, I have both, which is what I want to show you. First thing, in order to add, we have to add an outlet for the text box. We need braces, and the second brace will put itself in automatically. It's going to be an IB outlet. It's going to be a UI text field, and we have to give it the variable name, call it text box 1. And so now what happens here now is, when this class runs, this outlet is created immediately. The other item we need is the method, the action method. Hang on. The action method for our button. And so we're going to type in here, this is selector, which is actually just a name. Actually, we'll do it in lower cases. Button, click, and upper 1. And again, here I am with this bad keyboard technique here. And that's it. Okay, and we'll command save it. You notice what happened in the implementation. You had this error, or an apparent error. It says it's not completely, you have a method definition for that, but it's not found here. So we have to add that. And the button clicked, right? And we have to remove, unfortunately it added an ID sender on there, an extra one, which we don't need. And actually don't need that either. There we go. Okay, so we command save that, and now we have it. We have our action and we have our outlet, which means that we can now run something with a button, and we can now connect that information to our text field. We're going to type in here, text box 1, and we're going to just, for the sake of argument, equals, ampersand, or at rather, trial 1. Alright, and this is going to give us an error because we're trying to set an object equal to text, and what I wanted to show you here is that whatever you're doing with Xcode, you have to have apples equaling apples. You can't have apples to oranges. Here we have an apples to oranges. We have the text box, and we're saying take that text box and set it equal to trial, but it's not. It's an object. What do we want to set in that text box equal to the word trial 1, the text? So we go dot text, which is a string. Now we're saying string to string. So this text box has attributes. It has things like text and other items that are in there. If you look into it, I just want to give you that again. The dot is a dot foundation, and you can hit things like, you have all kinds of methods in here, or actually not methods, I should say attributes, that you can access. Alright, for our purposes right now, we're interested in the text. So now you say, okay, great, now we can click the button. Wrong. Remember I said in the beginning you needed 3 things: the button, the interface, the connection, and the method. And for the other item, we needed the text box, or the interface, the connection, and the outlet. We have 2. We have the method and the outlet in one location, and then in this location here we have the interface items, so we have to connect them. Now how do we do that? Easiest way is, you can double click on this, but the easiest way is to come to the end here in this little, they call it, I think they call it, there's a name for it, it provides you with all the properties of the interface item. And for this here, we just need a referencing outlet. We're not touching it, there's no action, we want it to display something. So we want to drag from the referencing outlet to the view controller. And there we see 2 potential outlets, a view, which we don't need, and the one we created, the text box. We connect it, and we're good to go. On the button, same thing, except there is an action, so we have to have a send event or a sent event. We can do touch-up on inside, which is the most common. Drag it again, bring it here, and we get actions, and there's our action. Now we click that. We are now connected. All 3 exist. We have our interface items, we have our method or our outlet, or the action or the outlet, and then we have, of course, where they're located in the code, in the classes. Now if we run this, we're just going to run it. Now, you can now click that button, and we should see the text in our text box. Let's let it go. Okay, it's running. Okay, here we are, and there's our button. We've clicked the button, and of course trial 1 is now placed in to the text box. It's done exactly what we said we wanted it to do. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to close this portion of this down here. Do the same thing with view controller number 2. Right? We're going to access in there the button. We're going to also open up the, and now you see now we have the correct implementation file here. We're going to then go to our declaration file, put it side by side, put the braces up as we did before, IB outlet, UI text field, and we're going to call this text box 2. And we're going to have IB action selector, and we're going to call this BTN button click 2. And we forgot a semicolon, of course, to close out the line. And of course, now we've got to implement here. Save that. And okay, all right. And I'm just going to then say that, all right, text box 2 dot, and it's what? Text equals @ trial 2. But I put trail in there, trial. And there we go. So now we have the outlet, the action, and we have it configured so that we have something in the method. Now we go back to the controller again. I'm sorry, the storyboard rather, again. And now we want to link these babies up. So for the button, we have a touch up inside. And button click 2, and on this one here we now have to have the referencing outlet. Whoops, do it again. And text box 2. So now we're going to run this here and show you that in fact this also does work. And we're running. Go. I don't know why it's so slow, but it does take some time to run it. We're going to go next, and now trial 2 appears in button 1, and rather button 2, and then trial 1 and button 1. You notice each time it loads it, it doesn't keep it. It'll clear the text field. Okay, so we've shown how to do the simplest thing of taking controls that we enter on into our interface, creating the outlets and actions we need, and then linking them to the interface items like the buttons or the text fields. The question becomes, what would happen if we wanted to push information from one to the other? It's a bit tricky. What you need to do is to access the AppDelegate, because the AppDelegate's that pipeline, as I say, that gives you, right now I'm going to put the class in here, AppDelegate. I'm going to add that class here to each view controller, and that class means that I can access the AppDelegate. What I'm going to need to do is to access it to push information to it, and access it to get information from it. Alright, that's why it's the pipeline. In the AppDelegate, I'm going to have to place some code, and I'm going to have to declare a string, I believe it will be. We'll call this one string put pass, since we're passing it between items. Now, when we do so, we're going to have to then give it a property as well. Let's see, which will be, we need to retain it. We can retain read write or read only. Retain means that we want the information to be existent so long as the AppDelegate is running. Read only, we just read, and read write, we can read and write as well. Retain is the most common one. Whoops. Try that again. And we want to make it non-atomic. Now, what does that mean? Non-atomic means that we don't want to have to set the setters and the getters for the variable. What are setters and getters? Setters and getters allow us to set the variable to something or get the variable from something. We want the compiler itself to set those variables for us. There's no need for us to do it. Now when we come here to the AppDelegate here, the implementation file, we'll see an error, right? The error says, hey, wait a minute, you know what, you auto-synthesize the property, which is what we're really doing here. We're saying auto-create this property, but it has no place here, right? So we're going to synthesize, and we're going to synthesize our string pass variable. What that means is, okay, now make it active to the whole AppDelegate, okay? And we don't need to do anything else with this at this point. We're going to just save it. At this point, what it says is we create the variable in this class, and it's resident in this class so long as the class exists. And that's why when you come here, we need to have the class existent here and here. Okay, the next part of our code, we're going to go to our first view controller. And we're going to type in here, use the AppDelegate class and create, I don't know, object new, we'll call it. And we'll call this new one, just so we'll have them together. Okay, new one. And what that means is it says, okay, use the AppDelegate class, create an object of that, and keep it resident. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy the code here, just for the sake of ease, which is how it works really well. And we're going to call this object new 2. Alright. So I have 2 objects now that will be resident in both of my view controller classes. Why do I want to do that? Well, I need to access them. I need to be able to set and get. If I don't have them, I can't use them. Okay, now we're going to go to the implementation files here. Even though those are set and usable, we still want to import import. I'm going to do that again here. I selected the wrong item. Import the AppDelegate. We want to get the information from that. We need that in our view controller implementation files, both of them. And the reason we do is because even though we set the variable in our declaration, we need to access the AppDelegate here. Okay, there's one remaining item that we need to do. We need to let the code, let Xcode know that we're going to share this AppDelegate with this class. Otherwise, it can't talk to it. It won't be able to talk to the class, right? I'm just going to, right now, open up a previous project and copy one line of code, because I don't remember it at the top of my head all of the time, but it's a code, and you've seen this code before when I do this. So you've seen this before. Hang on. It's in the implementation file, and here it is, right here. Okay, we're going to just minimize that. You're going to place that code here. Okay, it's going to error out because this is not a real object, doesn't exist. This object, remember, we're looking at the object we created here. We're taking object new 2, for example, in this class, right? That's the second class. And IntelliSense will give it to us, object new 2. And obviously, this is going to error out because this is not our AppDelegate, right? But we need to access the AppDelegate. The only way we can do that is if we import the header file. That's why we need that here, to get it here, to get the actual class. MN AppDelegate. All right, and there's our code. So our code says, look, take the variable we created, set it equal to an instance of the class, make it a shared application delegate, which means let us share the information between the app delegate and this class, and do it when we load up each time, right? Okay. And we're going to do the same thing with that we did in our original class here. We're going to do the same thing here. It's going to error out if we copy the code. Why? Because object 2 doesn't exist. It's going to highlight that one. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so we're almost home free here. Now, first thing we want to do is go to the second one here. we set text box toText equal to trial2. Now, the application delegate object is created, it's active, and it can talk now to this class. We just did that right now. Wasn't that much code, we just did it. What do we want to do here? We want to access the object new2, right? And we want to set that equal to, equal to, I'm sorry, we want to set what? That? No, it's an object of the app delegate. We want to set the string in that object. Here's why we created the string in the app delegate. We cannot set a string equal to an object. We tried that with the text box. It didn't work. So here we created this string, which will be resident. As long as the app delegate's resident, we need that string. How do we get to it? We create the object, and then we do the dot, as we did with the text. String pass. It's the same thing. Text box is an object, but the text is actually string. Object new2 is an object, it's an app delegate object, but string pass is the string. And we want to set that equal to text. So what we say is, okay, here's what we're saying here in this button click. First one, set the text box text equal to trial2, and then in the second one, set the app delegate string equal to text box to text. Right? Okay, so now we've passed this string, trial2, to the app delegate here. Right? We come over here now to our implementation file here. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to modify our code here with a little if. If, and this is our if-then statement, it's going to be our first one. If, and here's why we need the object here. One of the reasons we need the object of the app delegate, dot string pass. Hang on. And one, dot string. Not, oh, I see there's two dots there, sorry, dot string pass, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, made a little boo-boo. On an if statement, always put a parenthesis. Forgot that one. Okay, object 1 new dot string pass, there we go. If that equals null, we want the actual null value. If it's not set, then do that. Else, the text box text equals, and we're going to go to object new again, dot string pass. So, and we're going to save that. So here's what happens. We say, look, if there's nothing in that string, if it's a null, if it hasn't been set, then just set it to trial1. Make that text in there trial1. But if it has been set to something, make it whatever it was set to. We're going to run this. All right? Okay. So when we click that button in the first view, we should, if we're right, get trial1. Let's see if it's open. Here we go. Okay. Button 1, trial 1. Didn't have any errors, didn't find anything in the string pass. Button 2, trial 2. We go back. Now, this should be trial 2, and it in fact is. We've just passed information from one view to the other view via the app delegate. It's the pipeline. So, what's the takeaway here? If you have to add information to, let's say, SQLite, we're going to get into that too with this. We're going to modify this and do some things like that. If you have to add something to a table view, and you have to add it between views. So if I need to add an entry to a table view, and I bring up the drop down to add that information, the text box and the button to add that information, I can pass it to the app delegate, from the app delegate to table view. So it's the pipeline of information. We noticed here too that anything resident within each view, you can only create within each view's class, its implementation and declaration file. But if you got to pass information between the views, that's where you use the app delegate. So I'm going to save this code for you. It's going to be a new version of the code. You have the original from the first one there. It's already at the website as we speak. I'm going to save this one, compress it as a zip, put it at the website, and you can play around with this too and see how it works. We didn't add a lot of code. Let's just take a quick look back at what we did, at the quick modifications. Okay, we came over to our controllers, and in our controllers we have the text box, outlet, and the action. And this way, when we then take those and we connect them at the storyboard, right over here, they were connected. Right, we have connections to the outlet for the text box, and for the button, it's the touch up on inside. Come on. Touch up on inside, right? And once they're connected, when we click them, then whatever occurs here in our action will occur. In this case, for text box 2, we're setting it to trial 2. And then what we did is we said, okay, we need to create a variable here in our app delegate. We only created it right here. And we set it to a property, and we retain that as well. We need to retain that as long as the app delegate exists. And we synthesize it as well. So because we didn't want to set the setters or the getters, we had Xcode do that for us. It's very easy. So the variable is now resident in that app delegate. Then we come back over here and we say, okay, we've got to create the class for the app delegate, so we can create our own instance of the app delegate here. When we do that, we have to access the header file as well, because we need to then set that instance of the app delegate equal to a shared application delegate so we can communicate with it. And then we can then now take that instance and access the string we created and set that equal to the value of the current text box. Now we come over to the final controller here, the initial one, and we say, okay, we did the same thing with the outlets and the text box, but here we say, okay, look at that string in the app delegate, and if it's null, hey, just then whatever I click on that text box, just set it to trial 1. But if it isn't null, set it equal to what was just selected. So we passed it from one view controller to the other, and it's really, really neat. So we're going to build on this in the next tutorial. I think what we'll do here, and we'll create another view with a with a text. With a table view, and we'll create it off the main view instead of off the secondary view. Remember this: when you create new views off the main view, what you are doing is you are able to go back to the main view, and that's kind of how you want your app to be created, because you want your user to have a main view and then subviews. And we're going to create the table view off the main view, and then I think what we'll do is we're going to have code to add items to the table view. All right, and so that's it. I'll see you next time. Hope this helps. Take care, and like I say, this will also be part of the training at edu 2.0.